Welcome to the Pennsylvania Sickle Cell Providers Network Advocacy Day. My name is Michael Matthews. I am the Executive Director of the Children's Sickle Cell Foundation here in Pittsburgh. I would like to thank the PASCPN members in attendance and give a special thanks to the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, state representatives, local office officials, and their staffers. In addition, the Pennsylvania Department of Health, the host of the statewide agencies that partner with us to deliver high quality programs and services. Most of all, I would like to thank our families that are in attendance. Advocacy Day is when we take a moment to engage, educate, and empower our legislators to make an informed decision that affect the lives of nearly 5,000 persons living with sickle cell disease across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Today, you will hear from my colleagues from across the state speak about the successes and strides that we have made in Pennsylvania and challenges ahead that we will face together as a network. Between speakers, you will see short 1-minute videos featuring patients, caregivers, and families living with sickle cell disease. Please use the chat box for comments. Next, you will view a short video, Shine the Light on Sickle Cell Disease, created by Maureen Chandler from the SCDAA Philadelphia Delaware Valley chapter. This powerful video encourages everyone to shine the light on sickle cell day on sickle cell on World Sickle Cell Day, which is June 19th, 2021. Following the video, the first speaker will be Ms. Camille Coleman, health educator from St. Christopher's Hospital in Philadelphia. She will provide information on the partnerships, history, and effectiveness of the PASCPN.
We need volume. We need audio.
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I am trying to get my camera on. I'm doing this on. All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay. Okay. I can go ahead and get started.
Yes, please.
Yes.
You're good to go.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I said my good mornings, but I'm happy to be here with everyone participating in the Pennsylvania Supports Sickle Cell Advocacy Day 2021. I am Camille Coleman. I have been part of the sickle cell community for the past 17 years through my role as a health educator, as well as a program manager at the Marian Anderson Comprehensive Sickle Cell Center at St. Christopher's Hospital for Children in Philadelphia. I am also a proud participant in the Pennsylvania Sickle Cell Providers Network. The Sickle Cell Providers Network was established out of a commitment of community-based organizations and pediatric and adult clinical sickle cell programs to remain engaged in statewide collaboration to improve the lives of those living with sickle cell disease in the state of Pennsylvania. Initially, we all fell under the umbrella of being programs funded by the Pennsylvania Department of Health Bureau of Family Health. So in the beginnings, it was very informal. We were a group of participants. There was no mission statement. There weren't any specific goals or objectives. There was no specific criteria for joining. It quite simply was a call for action and a desire to act. The overarching goal that the Pennsylvania Sickle Cell Providers Network had was to simply improve the lives of anyone living with sickle cell disease in the state of Pennsylvania. So the questions we had to ask ourselves is, how are we going to do this? And really specifically, what were we going to do? So the first thing that we needed to do was identify what Pennsylvanians living with sickle cell, what their needs were. We had to figure out where were their gaps in services, where were their gaps in community resources and supports as well. The how was really, we all decided that we were going to pool our expertise. We were going to utilize our respective resources, and we were going to really harness the power of the geographical reach that we had as we represented many counties across Pennsylvania. So our initiatives that we started off with really came out of how we prioritized them, came out of the conversations that we had. We were committed to meeting on a monthly basis via conference call. And through those conversations, we started with, in terms of the work that we were going to do as a network, with two initiatives. The first initiatives was the sickle cell school nurse curriculum. And what that was that we wanted to create a tool, really a self-guided tool that school nurses across Pennsylvania could access, because we wanted to give them accurate information about sickle cell disease. And we wanted them to have the knowledge how to make students living with sickle cell in the school setting. We wanted to make the school setting a place where they could thrive. We also wanted this to be widely accessible. And what we hoped is that it would live on the Pennsylvania Departments of Education's learning management system. And we fell short of that goal, but I think that's something that we will continue to try to do as we move forward as a network. But the curriculum is still available. So if anyone, you know, of any school personnel, school nurse that needs that, it is available. Our second initiative was the Hydroxyurea Health Education and Awareness Initiative. That was in 2014. So at that time, hydroxyurea was the only FDA-approved disease-modifying drug for sickle cell disease. And there was support from the state for community-based organizations and clinical programs to really push for making sure that patients and families had access to accurate information and education about hydroxyurea as a treatment, wanted families and patients to be able to really understand how to assess the benefits or the risk of the therapy. As providers, we wanted to also have like a knowledge sharing opportunity. So we actually convened in Harrisburg. We had a workshop where providers and community-based organizations across the state, we were actually able to be in the same space, which many of us have forgotten what that feels like for now, but hopefully that'll come soon. And we were really able to share with each other our approaches to therapy, how we monitored the therapy. Community-based organizations were also able to help the clinical programs, provide them with information about how they could be helpful with educating patients and parents as well. Also how together as clinical programs and community-based programs, we're able to help improve adherence to the therapy. And out of that, the product out of that was the hydroxyurea health education and awareness toolkit, which is also still available. So if anyone is interested in obtaining that, you can get in contact with any of the community-based organizations that help coordinate Advocacy Day, and they should be able to get that to you as well. One of the initiatives that I'm most proud of, and we're actually participating in that today, is the network's involvement in Advocacy Day. As a network, what we've been able to do is increase participation in Advocacy Day across the state. We've been able to educate families about how to find out who their legislators and state representatives are and how to engage with them. We also wanted to educate families about the legislative process and also understand how they have influence as constituents as well. So as the young people say, we talked about how it started, and now I'd like to talk about how it's going. So currently right now, we do have a formal mission statement, which to me is an indicator that we've really solidified ourselves as an organization or as an entity, and that we have focus. We have, we understand how to harness our power as a network and how we can create and develop initiatives and programs and meet our goal as improving the lives of people living with sickle cell disease in Pennsylvania. Currently, we have representation across the state. There are over 30 participants from community-based organizations and clinical programs that are invited to participate in the monthly calls. We've also established an invaluable network that has then led to innovative partnerships between community-based organizations, and clinical programs. So I think the work that we have done has set ourselves on a trajectory to be able to obtain that goal that we set for ourselves. One of our goals that we also have is that we want to make sure that no matter where you are in Pennsylvania, if you are living with sickle cell disease, that your region or your location should not dictate whether or not you have access to quality care or quality community resources and community support. So ultimately, we'd like to grow those who will participate in the network. Once again, there is no specific criteria to join. If you provide services to someone living with sickle cell disease in the state, if you are someone living with sickle cell disease in the state, we invite you to at least reach out to one of the community-based organizations to find out how you can participate. If you'd like to participate in the calls, if you are a community-based organization or a clinical program, even if you only take care of one person with sickle cell disease, we would like our network to represent those who live all throughout the state of Pennsylvania. We also want to, thank the state for their continued support of the programs in which the participants who participate in the network, work outside of the network. So the clinical programs, the pediatric and adult, and all the community-based organizations. So we hope to be doing this work for many more years to come. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to talk about the work that the Pennsylvania Sickle Cell Providers Network is doing. Thank you very much.
It's a hereditary disease of the hemoglobin in the blood. Causes the blood cells to sickle. A very painful disease. Without Ruby, I don't know what I would have gone through. Make sure we get to our appointments. If I need any kind of assistance, she will make sure that I'm there for her, and she will give me information if I need that. So it's just been wonderful. Thank God. It was amazing.
Thanks. Good morning.
Hello, my name is Shyla Pellman. I am 38 years old and I have sickle cell disease, SC. Some of the challenges I face with sickle cell disease is having pain throughout mostly my arms and legs. They come a couple times a week. I also have to get blood exchanges every 5 weeks. So I get blood and I give away blood. They take out my red blood cells. So I got to get a big needle put in my chest every 5 weeks. So that can be challenging. Also, people not understanding people with sickle cell. Working in the sickle cell community, there's so many sickle cell people who need to be heard and were judged. The hospitals, the doctors need to be educated more on sickle cell disease. We need to have more specialists on sickle cell disease in Pennsylvania, not just major hospitals, also in rural areas. There's a lot of people who are just tired of being judged, and people aren't realizing how painful sickle cell disease can be. So that is my story.
You're muted.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Zamoria Brandon. I'm the administrator, social worker for the Philadelphia, Delaware Valley chapter of the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America. And again, we want to welcome you to this virtual Sickle Cell Advocacy Day, but specifically addressing our theme, making sickle cell disease a priority in Pennsylvania. And so Camille Coleman has already told you all about our network, but I want to be able to introduce to you some of the people that have supported us for many, many years, and some that are interested in supporting us moving forward. So we have a few legislators, some from the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus. We have one from the Appropriations Committee. And this year we have added a wonderful addition to this speaker's remarks, Councilwoman Helen Gim. So we want to begin in this order. We have Representative Donna Bullock, who is the current chair of the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, representing the 195th Legislative District in Philadelphia County. We have Representative Stephen Kinsey, who is the former chair of the legislative district for the 201st area in Philadelphia County. We also have Representative Patrick Harkins, who is with the 1st District from Erie County. And I know on the line, I'm not sure if he'll be able to speak. I want to mention Representative Brandon McCarsick of District 25 from Monroeville, Pennsylvania. And then last but not least, again, for the first time ever, we have a representative from Philadelphia County, and that is none other than Councilwoman at Large, Helen Gim. And that means that she covers the entire city of Philadelphia. She's also the first Asian American that serves on our Philadelphia City Council. So in that order, can we begin with Representative Donna Bullock to make remarks? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Brandon, for that warm introduction, and greetings to the entire Pennsylvania Sickle Cell Association. It's truly an honor to bring you some brief remarks on behalf of the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus. We have been advocates for the Sickle Cell Association and your providers and those who are living with sickle cell in our communities for many years. I know that my previous chair, Representative Stephen Kinsey, will talk more about some of that work we've done in the past, which is why I've also appointed him as chair of our new subcommittee of Health, Equity, and Justice. It's important that we as legislators at the state level, particularly legislators of color, acknowledge the injustices and the inequities in our healthcare system and how that impacts the most vulnerable among us, but particularly how it impacts the healthcare of Black and Brown Pennsylvanians. You know, what we've learned over this last year as we dealt with the pandemic, that one, our healthcare system is ill prepared to deal with and respond to and recover from a public health crisis, but also deeply embedded in that healthcare system are inequities and implicit bias and systemic racism. And how that plays out in your healthcare, how it plays out and how we pay attention and invest in research and care in regards to sickle cell is very important. Your theme this year is making sickle cell disease a priority in Pennsylvania. And you have 3 calls to action: increasing funding for community-based providers and services, increasing provider education and resources for pain management, and assessing the impact of COVID and the opiate crisis on the sickle cell community. And I will add to that, we need to also increase funding for sickle cell research and invest in healthcare providers of color that look like you, share your experiences, and share your cultural interests as well. It's important that we, as we address health inequities, as we address the provider system that's available, that we do what we can to also invest in research and medical research specifically for sickle cell. When you look at medical research dollars, those dollars are disproportionately spent on medical conditions that may or may not have higher impacts in our communities. And so we want to make sure we get our fair share of medical research dollars as well. We also want to make sure we see and we support health professionals that look like us, that come from our communities, that share our cultural experiences, and do all of the other work that our community providers, like many of you on this call, is doing. We need to invest and support that work. We are committed as the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus to do what we can at the state level to continue to be advocates, to empower you and give you a platform to share your experiences. Thank you to those who shared their video experiences, Shayla and others who have that have not yet watched. Thank you for that. And thank you again for inviting the Black Caucus to be a part of your lobbying day, but also count on us to always be in your corner, to always be there to support the work that you are doing. A couple of weeks ago, I participated in a blood drive to support sickle cell organizations and to make sure that we have resources and blood donations available for those who need them. And I would like to encourage those of us who can to do so as well. Thank you again, Ms. Brandon, for this opportunity to speak. And I'll pass the mic on to my former chair of the Black Caucus and our chair of our subcommittee on Health, Equity, and Justice, Representative Steve Kinsey.
Good morning, and good morning, everyone. And I want to say thank you to Chairwoman Donna Bullock. I also want to acknowledge Chairman Patrick Harkins, who I believe is on this call, Council Member Helen Gim, who's on this call, as well as Representative Brandon Markosak, who I believe will be joining us as well. But before I begin, I'd like to, if I may, and you might have already did this earlier on in session, but I want to just take a moment to have a moment of silence for a good friend, not just of mine, but also a good friend of yours, the Reverend Leroy Simmons. And again, I might have missed it, and I apologize if you did acknowledge his homegoing earlier today, but Reverend Leroy Simmons is actually someone who I knew as a youngster here in the Germantown community in Philadelphia, a strong advocate, community activist, beating the drum back with one of my predecessors, the Honorable late David P. Richardson Jr. But then over the course of recent years, when I saw Reverend Simmons up at a rally in Harrisburg with the for sickle cell, unbeknownst to me, this is a gentleman who shared with me his own personal struggles at times. So if I can, maybe just have a moment of silence for our good friend and brother, Leroy Simmons. Brother Simmons will truly be missed. He will truly be missed. I want to follow up on my good friend and the chairwoman, Chairwoman Donna Bullock. As the chairwoman had mentioned, she appointed me to be subcommittee chair of Health and Equities. And when we talk about health and equities, we're talking about communities, people who are disproportionately, for lack of a better word, I'd say snubbed. And I'm just going to use that term snubbed. You know, I don't need to be politically correct here because I think I'm among friends. And unfortunately, over the course of time, we've seen that communities of color have sacrificed and have suffered the greatest, whether it's the COVID-19 pandemic, whether it's support for sickle cell, or even back in the day when drug abuse was running rampant. Our communities were sort of left to fend for themselves without the support of local. As the call of action, you know, increased funding for community-based programs and services, truly needed. Increased provider education and resources for pain management of persons with sickle cell disease, truly needed. Support for assessing the impact of the opioid crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic in the sickle cell community, truly, truly, truly needed. However, I'd also like to add to the call of action because I think there's some things that we, and I'm saying we in a collective, need to do to ensure the sustainability of the work that many of you are doing, to ensure that there's support and services for those in suffering with the sickle cell disease. And so if I may, I'd like to add to the call of action. And again, I'm going to use terms that may not necessarily be politically correct because sometimes we just got to be who we are without worrying about the fitting within these barriers or the parameters that other folks set for us. So what I've added to that list was demand a meeting with the Wolf administration. And I'd like to say that we can check that box off because with the support of Chairwoman Donna Bullock, the administration has reached out. And initially, and again, I'm just going to be upfront and frank with you guys, initially, they only wanted to meet with legislators to discuss this. But this is all of our battles. This is not for us to sit there goody-goody with the administration and go back and forth. This is for the administration to hear the struggles that you're going through, the struggles that you're putting forth and as it relates to providing supports and services to folks that are out there. And many of you know what I'm talking about, and I'm talking about the funding that was recently cut. I'm talking about the funding that was put out for a bid and given to an organization that one, doesn't even know our communities, two, that doesn't even have a history for serving people with sickle cell. So as I add to the call of action, the demand meeting with the Wolf administration, it's done, and Chairwoman Bullock and I are working with the administration to obtain a date. And we're looking forward to having members from the provider network join us so that way the administration can hear front and center the issues that are impacting the work that you're doing. Another call to action that I'd like to add to the list. As we talked about increased provider education and resources, let's talk about ways to increase education and awareness among state and local elected officials. You know, I think this is great to have this type of forum where we can have conversation, but I think that we need to find a way to expand it. I'm willing to work with my colleagues who are on the phone, who are on the Zoom call right now. So that way, whether it's us picking up a phone and calling our individual members, whether it's us utilizing the platforms that we have, be it the Black Caucus, be it the Democratic Caucus, be it the Health Committee, but there are forms that we can use to bring greater awareness that will allow you to better educate us as elected officials in regards to the issues that you're dealing with, and let us know how we can be more supportive in a collective fashion. So please, please urge you to consider that as a additional call to action. And lastly, this is something that some folks think is not effective, but I can tell you that in my opinion, it is effective. And what I'm talking about is a letter writing / email campaign to your elected officials and the governor's office. We as elected officials, we do have conversations. And as we get a bunch of emails coming in, believe me, you know, some folks might just try to go to and delete it. But we see it, we normally read it first and foremost. And I just think that that can add on to the additional ideas that I had mentioned. You know, we need to find every way possible to educate the members who are making decisions as it relates to budget cuts, as it relates to funding, and especially as it relates to health concerns that impact people of color all throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. You know, I think I heard earlier in the presentation that over 5,000 people in Pennsylvania are living with sickle cell. Well, the reality of it is that all 5,000 of those people are not simply located in the city of Philadelphia. There's 67 counties, you know, and I'm quite sure that we can do some work with our Democratic office to find out exactly what counties those folks live in across the state of Pennsylvania. And then maybe we can strategically start with those particular members who have folks living in their districts with sickle cell. But I urge all of us to work together, utilizing whatever resources that we have, whatever mediums that we have, to educate every single one of us, local, state, hell, we can even do federal as well. We need to, this is an all hands on deck before it gets worse. And if we're talking about funding, let's make it a party. Local, state, and federal dollars is what we need to support the work that you do. With that being said, again, I want to thank the Providers Network for having me on here. Again, I want to thank my colleagues for the work that they're doing at the State House as well as locally. And I'm looking forward to continuing the efforts to educate all Pennsylvanians so that way we can support the sickle cell and make sickle cell a priority. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I think I'm up next, Steve. I was having a little trouble with my computer there for a minute, but good morning, everybody. It's great to be with you. It's an educational process for me. I, at one time, was an honorary member of the Black Caucus, going back probably 5 or 6 years ago. I'm going to have to work with Representative Kinsey to get me back in, I think. It's a fascinating disease. I was made aware of it by a constituent in my district in Erie. And I began doing some of my own research on Google searches. And then I actually read a couple pamphlets that were provided to me from a local woman who's been an unwavering advocate for this, as well as many other minority issues. She was a former city councilwoman in Erie, a great asset to our region. And she keeps me up to date on many of these issues and the funding things, the funding problems that we're encountering, as well as the the potential for the people in my area and in our region who are susceptible to this, as well as those who are dealing with this. And I just think back, listening to everybody talk, I have a cousin who's a dermatologist, and probably about 20 years ago, we were talking about AIDS. And we knew a few people locally who had it and the stigma that goes with those kinds of things. And he said to me, as bad as this is, and he had a son die of brain cancer a few years after this, but he said to me at the time, as bad as these diseases are, he said, it provides hope for people in a lot of ways that you wouldn't imagine, in that the research that they do for these diseases, and I think also of COVID, the knowledge and the expertise that they pick up for the long-term fight is the positive thing you have to look at. And I think of that with this. This seems like just such a simple thing in the task of solving healthcare issues. It just seems like we're on the cusp of something that should make it easier, if not a better way of solving it or overcoming it. But I'll stand with you, and anything I can do for you. I got great people like Donna Bullock and Representative Kinsey, and Brandon Markozik is also on the call. But a number of our colleagues are committed to issues like this. But I think the real task, I guess, would be to get out the message to the public through letters to the editor, through community outreach, to people that, like myself, who weren't aware of it. We wouldn't have been unless somebody had brought it to our attention. But stay on the forefront at budget time, but all year round. Beat the drum. As long as you keep doing that, that's how you get people involved, and that's how you get people motivated. There's a lot of people that want to join in on the crusade, but they don't know what the dynamics are and what the particulars are and how they can play a pivotal role sometimes. So again, thank you for having me. I'll help you out in any way that I can, and I appreciate you having me with you this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I am honored to join all of you. I'm City Council Member Helen Gim, and a longtime and very good friend of Reverend Leroy Simmons. I'm so grateful to Representative Kinsey for his beautiful tribute to my dear friend, a warrior, a champion for justice, a nonstop advocate for Philadelphia children and young people, and for Black people and communities whom he uplifted each and every time. I'm also honored to follow my wonderful colleagues at the state level, for whom you've been wonderful partners and leaders, Representative Donna Bullock, Representative Kinsey, and of course, Representative Patrick Harkins. Thank you so much for your leadership at the state level. I wanted to share, just a moment again for my dear friend, Reverend Leroy Simmons. Representative Kinsey did a moment of silence, but if there's one thing that I remember most about Reverend Simmons is that when he was by your side, nothing really felt impossible. He was someone who really thought about what advocacy meant in a deeply meaningful way to communities, not just so that you could be seen by elected officials, but that you would build your internal capacity for voice, that we would uplift people within our communities, especially young people, especially women, especially Black men, in a time of uncertainty or bias or ignorance. And one of the things that we did so often together when we were fighting on the front lines for the public schools was to talk about the importance of people telling their stories. The problems that happen a lot is that when we deal with diseases, we look at numbers first and then start to make assessments based on those things. We don't see the stories behind those numbers. And one of the powers of today, and for the gratitude I have for all of you who took this beautiful morning to be on this call, is that we are here to tell our stories, to bring life to those statistics, to remind people that that these numbers are people's lives. There are children, there are elders. They represent each and every day that people live and survive sickle cell. And it's all the more reason why I'm just honored to join with all of you. I did want to thank our Delaware Valley leader, Zamoria Brandon, for your invitation. I was honored to join the Sickle Cell Disease Association of Delaware Valley on a number of walks in the past. It's been a really powerful organization. And I'm on here to pledge my partnership on that, certainly in Reverend Simmons's name, but also because all of you are on here. One other reminder is that Reverend Simmons lived to a beautiful age of 74. He had multiple grandchildren who are his legacy, and he leaves myself, certainly Representative Kinsey, who I see on here, as those and all of you as those who will carry on in his name, if in a much lonelier world for me. So a couple of areas that I wanted to address in particular. First and foremost is that we need to harness the power of institutions to reach families and to help young people, especially around education. So I have been a longtime advocate on schools, worked hard to restore a school nurse to every single Philadelphia school. I would like to continue to work with the Delaware Valley Association of Sickle Cell to ensure that school nurses are working very closely around sickle cell education, around access to resources, that we ensure that our school nurses are actually trained and strong resources and advocates for young people who are suffering from sickle cell disease in our school systems. This is important because the Pennsylvania Nurses Association actually isn't just, even though I mentioned Philadelphia Public Schools, it's not just about the public schools here. They actually serve the private schools, parochial schools, and I do believe the charter schools. So this is a very important outreach opportunity. Many sickle cell disease impacts a very young population, as we know. And so it's really important for young people in particular to be able to know that there are people who understand what they're going through, who are deeply sympathetic, and who will be actively supporting their families and communities as they manage this disease until we can finally get a cure. The second area that I would like to really focus in on is to reiterate the call that Representative Kinsey and Representative Bullock earlier said. We must support Black doctors. We must support healthcare providers of color. This is critically important. As you, from an Asian American and immigrant perspective, we have a number of members of our communities who are impacted as well by sickle cell. Primarily around the world. There are hardly any numbers here in the US about it, but it is a really important issue. The ones who understand this the best, who will not go by big aggregate numbers, are going to be healthcare providers of color. So our responsibility is to really uplift them, to ensure that they're brought into the fold. As we do advocacy, I think they can be enormous advocates for the communities. And that as we continue to expand our networks, that we seek partnership with healthcare providers of color who are not only incredible advocates on this disease in particular, but recognizing all the different ways in which the healthcare industry's profit-driven and racial exclusion has actually curbed lives. And it is really important for us to continue to expand that leadership. And then finally, I'm on here in partnership with Zamoria Brandon because Philadelphia is going through its budget process, and we are hoping to allocate a pot of money to go for the Delaware Valley Sickle Cell Disease Association. And like Representative Kinsey said, we welcome your calls. We need your calls. We welcome your emails. We need your emails. But in particular, as we start to get out of COVID, my hope is that we can start to do more of these kinds of Zoom meetings, in person, town halls that are local. We've been creative in this virtual world of ours, but we must be able to make connections. It does not have to start with your official leadership, although it is an incredible honor for myself and for all of our state representatives to be on here. But town halls really do center the voices of people, and they are a powerful vehicle for communities to uplift areas and voices, especially of young people, especially of our seniors and elders, or people who are shut out of traditional healthcare models. They offer a chance for associations to strengthen and broaden their connections with their members. And until we can get back to in-person, which I hope will be very soon, I really strongly encourage us to use this time in the next few weeks to bring in together some town halls. I know that I would have a partner in Representative Kinsey and Bullock here in Philadelphia to do a town hall with some of our colleagues that would not center actually the voices of elected officials, but would center the membership of the Delaware Valley Sickle Cell Disease Association. And of course, we can scale out. There's no reason to just leave it here to Philadelphia, or to just talk about it in narrow sectors. It can absolutely be a vehicle for us to broaden and expand the conversations to our state legislatures, whether they be here in this southeastern Pennsylvania region, or all across the state of Pennsylvania. We know that those who live with sickle cell need our voices to expand, to become louder and more powerful than they've ever been. And honestly, if we are caring for those dealing and suffering from sickle cell and surviving sickle cell, then we are actually caring for a broad range of we're closing the gap on inequities and race in our healthcare industry. So my investment on this is deeply personal. It comes from my lifelong, decades-long partnership with Reverend Leroy Simmons, but it is also very, very related to our work, to my commitment around healthcare justice for all, around a healthier Pennsylvania, voices of Black communities joined in with immigrant communities and healthcare providers of color can truly transform the way we look at one another, to build a true sense of humanity in inhumane times, and to ensure that this community gets the resources that it truly deserves. So I extend my deepest gratitude and pledge to absolutely carry on Reverend Simmons's work, and to be a great partner with all of you, and just enormous gratitude for all of you this morning. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Sean Brett. I was born with sickle cell disease, type SS, and my story is like any other story: pain, a lot of needles, a lot of heartache, a lot of missed birthdays, a lot of missed holidays, restrictions, sports restrictions, life restrictions, mental health restrictions. So I had my first pain crisis when I was 3 years old, and I'm from Philadelphia, PA. I represent Sturdy Heart. Thank you.
All right, yeah, my name is Julian Can. I'm from Pittsburgh, PA. I have sickle cell anemia, and I would say some of the challenges are pretty much just staying healthy enough to, be able to work continuously. And I would love to see Pennsylvania make sure that the hospitals are more supported as far as sickle cell patients. All right, yeah, my name is Julian Can. I'm from Pittsburgh, PA. I have sickle cell anemia. And I would say some of the challenges are pretty much just staying, I would say like staying healthy enough to, be able to work continuously. And I would love to see Pennsylvania make sure that the hospitals are more supported as far as sickle cell patients.
Thank you. My name is Ruby Jenkins' husband, and I am the founder and pioneer with Sickle Cell Anemia Program in Erie. I have over 48 years of experience in sickle cell services. In a couple months, I have 49 years of experience. I am pleased to share with you an overview of the UNFACC Sickle Cell Program. We are community-based services, and I emphasize community-based because we're located right here in the community. People we work with, they trust us and they believe in us as strong advocates of their concern and needs of those persons diagnosed with sickle cell anemia. We provide services to over 100 family members, including clients, education and information on sickle cell anemia and sickle cell trait. Our group sessions are held on healthy eatings, treatment advances and therapies, and we like to inform our families, empower them as to the advances in treatments and therapies that are available for them. We have sessions on coping with sickle cell disease, advocacy, self-sufficient group activity. Client services are also provided. Many times people have challenges to transportation for their medical appointments. So we want to improve access to medical care, and we provide client services so that transportation is available for them to get to their appointments. We also help them with emergency rent and utility help. We talked about the pandemic, and the pandemic has left the need for emergency relief for so many of our patients, and we're there for them. Utility help, career and training resources are available. Case management services are rendered. Support and monitoring of care plans is available for our clients. It's important, first of all, to get them to their appointments and then to make sure that they have a maintenance and ongoing monitoring plan so that the care plans that are in place for them, that we can help with whatever compliance is necessary. We conduct home visits. I still like to reach out to family members and to meet with them and be with them where they are. If it's in the living room setting, we'll be there. If it's at home at school with their counselors and teachers, we'll be there. So wherever the needs are, we try to provide those. We do assessment of needs so that we can see what is it that they have a need for. And then we can put together the short-term and long-term goals to help with those resources. And we're also proud of our collaboration with families and clients. We meet with family members. We meet with individual support systems that they have. And we also meet with social service agencies and organizations to gauge the local community resources that could be made available to them. We have connections with our schools and universities, and of course with our healthcare partners and collaborations with them. So we're here for our families. We're here for the community we serve. Our mission is helping sickle cell clients, promoting resources for the quality of life. This is our goal, This is our mission.
Hi, my name is Tyleisha Yates, and I have a 2-year-old son that suffers from sickle cell disease, and he is living well with sickle cell. Some of the daily issues and challenges we face is making sure that his health is okay, making sure his temperature stays regulated, making sure that he stays germ-free, and just making sure we check his spleen constantly every day or once in the morning. What I would like to see happen in PA is more attention go to our children that are in school that are struggling with sickle cell to ensure that they're getting the resources that they need.
Good morning. My name is Stan Simpkins, and I am the Executive Director of the Sickle Cell Disease Association of Philadelphia, Delaware Valley Chapter. Before I get started, I would really like to recognize and thank Councilwoman Helen Ginn, Representative Steve Kenzie, and the Pennsylvania Providers Network for really giving the legacy and the appreciation and the commitment that my chairman of my board, Reverend Leroy Simmons, to show you the commitment that Reverend Simmons has made when he became chairman of our board, was he and his wife committed $10,000 to the agency to start a scholarship fund, if you will, for all sickle cell patients who desire to go to college. We put those funds into the Philadelphia Foundation to distribute periodically as the interest grows to offer to students who meet the scholarship qualifications. To date, the scholarship has supported many students over the years, and the principal amount of the scholarship remains managed by the foundation for future distribution. And I just want to point out the fact that that was his commitment. And for 10 years, he lived up to his commitment, and he has honored us, if you will, and has directed us to continually provide the necessary services that our clients need who have sickle cell disease. And unfortunately, he passed away from sickle cell. The Sickle Cell Disease Association of America, Philadelphia, Delaware Valley Chapter, is a nonprofit 501c3 agency established in 1982, provide resources and assistance to children, adolescents, adults, and families affected by sickle cell disease and sickle cell trait in Philadelphia, Bucks, Delaware, Chester, and Montgomery counties. The agency is a chapter member of the National Association located in Baltimore, Maryland. Our mission is to serve as a vehicle and resource center for the psychosocial social services needed for children, adults, and their families that have the disease. We seek to develop, manage, and allocate resources in partnership with hospitals, charitable organizations, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, and also for any organizations that are interested, whether they be fraternal organizations, sororities, and the like within the Philadelphia area. I also want to point out that we seek out and build a strong community of support with each existing and potential partner. We seek in-depth education for our clients and deliver as needed to each service provider that assures patient-centered care. We also collaborate and establish specific protocols and appropriate follow-up to ensure that each client referred to sickle cell to our agency to support the partnership received and the effective level of care commensurate with the expected mutual agreement and outcomes. We initiate contact with our inactive clients through, of course, our outreach program that we do, and assure them that our services are consistently available to them. And we also make sure that they have a family home for care that they can always turn to for help. We assist the transition of children-centered care to an adult-oriented healthcare through the healthcare process. We'll implement an effective outreach and care programs that address multiple components of the transition process. Promote through seminars, literature, and on one occasion, we do it through all the materials that we are always mailing out to our clients. We empower patients to become their own healthcare advocates through our Project Self-Care program established to provide a forum for adults with sickle cell disease to discuss their concerns, shares, and give extended families of children with sickle cell disease an outlet to share their concerns and experiences. We are committed to ensure that our clients from birth throughout the lifespan have somewhere to turn. We are grassroots, we work in the community, and we are very concerned and willing and capable of providing the necessary services that our clients need on a continuous basis. I thank you.
Hello, and thank you, Stanley Simpkins. I would really appreciate your words about the work you're doing there in your network. My name is Dwayne Golden, and I'm the Executive Director for the South Central PA Sickle Cell Council. I count it a privilege to be here amongst each of you. I consider each person here a champion, as there's a cause greater than many of the things that are a part of our life. I think about those who've gone before us. We've already had a moment of silence for some, and I recognize many have given much of their lives in the efforts on behalf of sickle cell disease in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm thinking currently of Dr. Donald Spigner, who set out to champion the stamp as well as an endowment and things like that. And I count it a privilege as a newcomer here at the South Central PA Sickle Cell Council. There's a lot to be done, and I thank each of you representatives for the added calls to action, as well as the influence that you have on behalf of sickle cell disease amongst us all. Our mission is to use financial, political, and clinical influence to support patients, their families, caregivers affected by sickle cell disease through our advocacy and increased public awareness. We know that the more people are aware, the greater participation and commitment and contributions that can be made towards finding a cure. So once again, my name is Dwayne Gold. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you, and we will move on to our next CBO.
Hello, my name is Michael Matthews. I am the Executive Director of the Children's Sickle Cell Foundation in Pittsburgh. Our mission is to provide quality programs for children and adults with sickle cell disease to help them face the educational, social, and economic challenges caused by the disease across the lifespan. Our Pennsylvania Living Well with Sickle Cell Initiative regions are in southwestern Pennsylvania, and we also are going to be working with Dwayne in the Lehigh Valley capital area, and also in the Pocono area, which is in the northeast section of the state. We partner with UPMC Children's Hospital and the UPMC Adult Sickle Cell Provider or Sickle Cell Program, primary healthcare services, and all of the FQHCs, the Fairly Qualified Health Centers. Our programs and services, one that we just recently had because of COVID response, Project REACH, which stands for Remote Access Addressing Critical Needs at Home. We have our newborn, one of our core programs is our newborn handbook, handbook and toolkit. Our overarching family support, our educational support, which addresses school age through college, school age youth through college, and our transition, which we're especially proud of as the pediatric patients become adult patients. We do have a sickle cell adult team, our SCAT group, and outreach a lot of times happens in faith-based agencies. We work with about 450 families in 17 counties here at the Children's Sickle Cell Foundation. And currently we are undergoing a little bit of a transformation where we are going to be doing the unified care plan. We really concentrate on the families having as much to say about what services they need and or want as opposed to just prescribing it for them. We look forward to working with all of our families and new families that we're about to encounter. But our goal is simply to make sure in Pennsylvania everyone in Pennsylvania is living well with sickle cell. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Jonathan Williams. I'm from Pittsburgh, PA. I'm living with sickle cell. Some of the challenges I have to deal with or had to deal with were just keeping up with my family with sports and activities that I really couldn't do. That was just a big part of my life that I had to get through or get past or get accustomed to when it comes to sickle cell. And what I'd like to see around Pennsylvania or really just everywhere, I want to see more awareness when it comes to sickle cell. Not many people I know about it, and so I have to explain it. So if we make it like a known thing, then it would be more beneficial for everybody.
This is a call to action statement from the Pennsylvania Provider Network. To our legislators, we appreciate your support over the years and continued support for the sickle cell programs here in Pennsylvania. Today, we are asking for a $500,000 increase from Title V grant funds through the Pennsylvania budget sickle cell line item. We are asking our legislators to appropriate to the sickle cell line item funding for sickle cell community-based services in Erie, Philadelphia, Harrisburg, and Pittsburgh. Please join us in making sickle cell a priority. It's funding a priority here in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby. Again, my name is Dwayne Golden, and in this final phase of Advocacy Day, we'd be remiss not to lean into the challenges related to health disparities. And what we're going to go over here, you're going to hear from Dr. Gwendolyn Poles, who will discuss and talk about the opioid crisis and pain management. And you'll also hear from our very own social worker, who's going to talk about access to mental health resources and access to care. And you'll hear a few more videos from some of our very families and individuals who are dealing and battling with sickle cell disease. I'm going to turn over now to my colleague and our board chair, Dr. Gwendolyn Poles, as she discusses and talks about the opioid crisis and pain management.
Thank you, Dwayne, and good morning, everyone. As Dwayne said, my name is, I'm Dr. Gwendolyn Poles, and I am the board chair. I'm a retired physician living with sickle cell disease and the board chair of the South Central Pennsylvania Sickle Cell Council. I was honored to be one of the founding members, thanks to Dr. Spigner, the late Dr. Spigner, back in 1994, when he gathered together minority physicians in the Harrisburg area to figure out what we could do to make things better for people living with sickle cell disease. And in particular, because we had lost a very young adult due to lack of knowledge in the medical community. Dwayne and Mike Matthews have asked me to address give an update on the prescribing guidelines for opioids in sickle cell disease in light of the quote unquote opioid crisis. And that is not to diminish the fact that we do have an opioid crisis throughout the country, but I think most of us know that when our communities were dying from substance abuse, no one cared. And until it spread to the majority population and more affluent people of a different persuasion were passing from opioid overdoses, that's when it became quote unquote a disease, which it is, and a crisis, which it is. But unfortunately, people living with sickle cell disease have been adversely affected. And even prior to that, we were being denied appropriate pain treatment because it was assumed that we were drug addicts. I did prepare a bit of a presentation, which Dwayne, is that, is the slideshow showing?
No, it's not, but we can give you access to show your screen so you can.
Okay. I have the slideshow up, so if you let me know when it's sharing.
Currently not.
Okay. And so what I am going to share once these slides come up is just a couple of clips from the opioid prescribing guideline that was put together by a task force for the Pennsylvania Department of Health, pulled together some physicians around the state and some other folks, and it was published in July of, well, revised, I should say, in July of 2020. This really came out of the state making a grave error, the Department of Health, making grave error of putting out opioid prescribing guidelines. I'm going to say roughly around 2014. It may have been a little earlier than that. And the Advocacy Network and many of the CBO attendees at a symposium were not even aware that this existed and that there was no language in it to make sickle cell disease an exception for the way they were recommending opioid prescribing. And it really was harmful to the sickle cell community. So as a result of that, Dr. Rachel Levine, the head of DOH at that time, did put together a task force. And I was a member of that task force. And we did put together some guidelines. And we also put language in the emergency department guidelines as well to make sure that prescribers would know that sickle cell disease was an exception to the usual guidelines in the emergency department. Is my screen sharing yet?
Yeah, you have the capabilities. You have to click that green button on the bottom that says screen share.
You know what? It's because I had the slideshow up. Hang on. And I didn't see my screen.
It's all right.
All righty. Thanks.
You bet.
Screen. You seeing it now?
You're seeing it. Yes, we are.
Okay, super. So how do I minimize this? Okay. This is actually a screenshot of the cover of the guidelines, which can in fact be found on the DOH website. And for any of us who wind up in the emergency department, if necessary, if the physician or the mid-level practitioner that is treating you is not familiar with how to treat sickle cell disease pain, in addition to telling them, which we usually do anyway, you can refer them to the Department of Health website. And as I had stated, this was revised in July of last year. And I'm just going to highlight the big points. It does, fortunately, it explains a little bit about sickle cell disease and its associated painful events. It does recommend that providers review other evidence-based guidelines for sickle cell disease because it's really a snapshot. It doesn't go into a lot of detail. And the current guidelines that exist, that the most recent would be the NIH 2014 expert panel report, evidence-based management of sickle cell disease, and then the American Society of Hematology clinical practice guidelines for sickle cell disease. They've been working on updated guidelines as well. And this is just a snapshot of the first page of the document. And as you can see, it goes into a little bit about what sickle cell disease is. They do address acute pain, and I believe one of the strongest recommendations, which I fought for, was that initial patient evaluation and pain treatment should be instituted within 30 minutes of triage, and it should not, pain medication should not be withheld pending studies such as lab work, x-rays, etc., unless there's a life-threatening situation where that's important. But other than that, within 30 minutes from triage to treatment shouldn't be more than 30 minutes, and that is as per the NIH guidelines. It talks about the fact that patients living with sickle cell disease should have an established home pain management plan, which of course helps not having to access the ED as much, but most patients who have a primary care physician and or hematologist already have a home pain management plan and usually come to the emergency department only when that does not work. The institution, the hospital, should have a standard emergency department and inpatient protocol that can be individualized. However, I think most of us know that unfortunately, a lot of institutions do not have that. And that is some of the advocacy that we have to do to work with our hospital systems to get them to make sure that they have protocols in place. In the intravenous route should be started for the opioids. And if for some reason they can't get IV access, it can be given subcutaneously, which just means under the skin. And then if the patient is admitted, they should use what's called a patient-controlled analgesic machine, where a patient can control how much opioid that they get on a regular basis. That, of course, should only be instituted once pain control has occurred, a bolus, and it may take more than one bolus of morphine or other opioids. And then, of course, for chronic pain, where up to 50% of adults living with sickle cell disease actually have chronic pain and not just acute pain. But regardless, there should be a thorough pain assessment. It should be interdisciplinary. You may need to go to a pain specialist. Your hematologist may be able to handle it. Your primary care physician may be able to handle it. But also there are things such as massage therapy, mindfulness, and chiropractic care or osteopathic manipulative therapy and things like that, that may work. Everything, different people respond to different modalities. Heat treatment, which we all use at home. Non-opioid options, of course, are preferred because there are long-term effects of opioid treatment that's taken on a regular basis. Risk and benefits should be discussed with the patient if they're on it currently or if they're going to start long-term regular opioid use, to have that discussion so that the patient is very aware, or the parent, if it's a pediatric patient, very aware of the risk and the benefits of long-term chronic opioid treatment. And then if someone needs to be tapered off of opioids, there are guidelines that are referenced. And of course, it references the NIH document as well for chronic pain. Excuse me. So this document can in fact be accessed at the Department of Health website. And as you can see, this is the webpage, which I purposely pulled up last night. And there are many documents. And unfortunately, the one for sickle cell disease is at the very bottom, but nonetheless, it is there. And there's also the emergency department guidelines, which is right here where my cursor is. And that does, it's a very short document, only a couple of pages. And I am going to stop sharing. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Poles.
Thank you.
That was very helpful, and it kind of enlightens for a lot of us the dilemma of what most of our families and patients have to go through when visiting ERs and dealing with pain management, and particularly for the adult patients who are often forgotten. So we are currently going to move into the next phase, which we're going to hear from Deborah Brizard, who's going to actually be sharing our more on access to healthcare right after this video.
Hello, my name is Chad Williams. I'm living in Monroeville, Pennsylvania. I'm a father of a child with sickle cell, and my son, he's definitely dealing with situations where he'll miss school. You'll have to go to school in pain. There's many days where he is sitting in the nurse's office, but especially with this year dealing with COVID, with virtual school, he's missed out on his friends. And one of the bad things is he has to work from the bed because he has leg pains and he is suffering through that severely, but he's also still challenged to become, an all-around great student. So these have been some of the challenges that we've dealt with, but we're definitely pushing through it. But we always are happy to have the help that Pennsylvania can provide for us, and much needed help that we receive from the Sickle Cell Foundation.
Accessing mental health resources. The challenges often begins with, first and foremost, do you have the type of insurance that will allow for coverage for you to be able to receive the type of care that is much needed? And if you don't have the type of insurance that covers that type of care, in terms of socioeconomic income, that can be another barrier. And so therefore they cannot afford appropriate care. Then there is the added issue of COVID-19 and how that has turned their an already stressful situation into an even more stressful situation, and presented our families with a number of other barriers to having to accessing that care. As a social worker for the South Central Pennsylvania Sickle Cell Council, my job is to do what I can to try to connect them with the services that they need. A disproportionate number of my clients quite frankly, are dealing right now with depression. Some are even dealing with suicidal ideations. I shudder to think what would happen to them if the Sickle Cell Council was not there for them to be able to have that support system and have them navigate very difficult healthcare systems, particularly when it comes to accessing mental health. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michelle Parr. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm 55 years young, and I have been diagnosed with sickle beta thalassemia. Some of the things that Pennsylvania could do to help assist people who have to understand exactly how we feel when we come into the hospital ER, the emergency department, for treatment. I had great difficulties getting the doctors in my past to understand what I was going through as a sickle cell patient. And the Children's Sickle Cell Foundation, incorporated in Pittsburgh, they were a great asset to me in finding the type of doctor that I needed that understood exactly what my needs were as a sickle cell patient. And it would be beneficial if most other hospitals get a department or at least one specialist that understands what the patients deal with sickle cell. Because a lot of times I have found out that they just don't understand. So education and awareness is definitely necessary. Thank you.
Now it's time for us to come back to the calls to action as our representatives and Ruby Jenkins' husband has so eloquently have done earlier. Our focus now in this call to ask, or this call to action, is along the lines of the increased funding to certainly help stop the suffering that is going on, not just with the patients, but the families and those that support them, but to increase access to mental health resources. And a lot of the access to mental health resources comes from the funding. When we think about that, we have a great opportunity to not just increase the access to mental health resources, but simultaneously have this impact on the quote unquote, as Dr. Pohl said, the opioid crisis, the exclusion of sickle cell patients in that for being thought of, educating our physicians, educating the clinical staff within these different facilities. We have a great opportunity with increased funding to do a better job at addressing the #1 blood hereditary disease in the nation. Once again, my name is Dwayne Golden. I'm the Executive Director for the South Central PA Sickle Cell Council. And we're going to move on to my colleague, Michael Matthews of Pittsburgh Children's Sickle Cell Foundation. While he's coming on, we're going to watch one more video. I think it will be impactful for you to see.
Hi, I'm Tawana Williams. I'm a mother of a child. I'm a 16-year-old son with sickle cell disease. Some of the challenges we've been through has been anything from blood transfusions to him having his spleen removed at 3, to him being in pain on a day-to-day basis. I currently am a community health worker with the Children's Sickle Cell Foundation, and that also gives me the opportunity to deal with families on a day-to-day basis. My job is really to help in a positive way impact and support our families through this journey that we call life. So my ask for you guys is that you continue to support sickle cell and provide the funding that helps support not only families living with it, but us families working in it, as that support is extremely needed and it's invaluable. So thank you, and we appreciate you.
Back to you, Michael Matthews.
All right. All right. Well, surprise, surprise, surprise. I like to say thank you. We are going to end this session in a minute or two, but I really want to say thanks to all the speakers and presenters, and also for our representatives who took time out of their busy schedules to be on the call today. We really appreciate your time. Remember, one of our call to actions is we want everyone to be living well with sickle cell across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we really appreciate you guys for hanging in there with us. But on this beautiful day across all of Pennsylvania, everyone is having a beautiful day, I hope, at least weather-wise, we definitely are. We are going to give you back a half an hour in your day. But we want to say thank you again, and hopefully we can't wait till next year to have on our bright red shirts and be up at the Capitol for our next in-person advocacy day, where we can give out high fives and hugs in a much safer environment. So take care. Look forward to, and I want to thank everyone who was on the call today, the PASCP team, and the representatives that took time out of their schedule. So thank you, and have a blessed day and a blessed weekend. Have a good one.